Oh, it's time to start. Welcome class. As you know, I'm Professor Curtis. Says so right here. We're going to be starting a new unit on Felonasia, which is why I have the Felonasian flag up here. We're going to have a presenter today from Phoenix, Arizona, Professor Zimmerman, who will be presenting on the islands.
Thank you, Professor Curtis. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Zimmerman, and I'm here today to speak with you about the Felonasian Islands. The island was man-made. It was created by the Russians during the Cold War and became the common dumping ground for many of the world's excommunicated criminals in the year 2016. After habitation, Hans Manstrangler came to power and implemented a dictatorial caste system. Manstrangler was deported from Germany when he was convicted of killing the late Chancellor and President. The severity of his crimes created his reputation in Felonasia and ultimately allowed his rise to power. Cultural separation. Although Felonasia has a very diverse population, under the rule of Hans Manstrangler, the society maintains racial separation. The varying ethnic groups developed districts according to origin, but have no relation or interaction with one another. Foreign relations. The early foreign relations of Felonasia were very tense. Since the country is comprised of excommunicated peoples, their homelands had very little to do with them. They did not want any form of relation. Embargoes were put in place by many of the world's main countries, and that was true until recently, when the drug Abenaki was produced. Oh, apparently that concludes my lecture on the history of Felonasia. Now I'd like to show you a few clips of interviews I took when I was there last fall.
Welcome to Felonasia. What was once barren sea in the middle of the Atlantic is now a fertile island home to an immensely diverse community. The island was created by Russia as a secret weapon during the Cold War, but has since grown to become its own country. Soon after the war, the island became a dumping site for the world's excommunicated criminals. Today it is a powerful empire with a modern government and political culture. Dr. Zimmerman traveled to this country and had an interview with a native to find more about what life on Felonasia is like.
Hello, I'm Dr. Zimmerman, and I'm here with
Michael Fairlane.
To talk about Felonasia. You're a native of Felonasia, Michael, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
When did you move to Felonasia?
I was deported from America about 3.5 years ago.
What was your crime?
I was a drug smuggler. I smuggled marijuana and cocaine and got caught on several charges with it.
And marijuana and cocaine are not legal in the United States?
No, they are not.
They're legal here, though?
Yes.
Okay. What job do you occupy in Felonasia?
I grow and sell Abenaki, which is our primary export.
What is Abenaki?
Abenaki is a drug found only on Felonasia. It has some healing properties, and it also gets people very high, which is why it's very popular. We also export it to several countries.
Okay. So you cultivate Abenaki. How does that affect you financially?
I'm an upper-class citizen here. I make a lot of money since I get a good chunk of the exports from it, and just in general, it always is bringing me money in because there's such high demand.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
You said you moved here 3 years ago, so you were around when Hans Manstrangler was in power, correct?
Yes.
How would you say that life under the rule of Hans Manstrangler compares to that of the new ruler, Konstantin Clavel?
Konstantin is overall a better leader. He's more lenient in several aspects. He gives a larger chunk of money from exports to us growers. He's more religiously tolerant. His punishments are not nearly as severe as Hans's were.
Good to know. You mentioned religious toleration.
Yes.
What is that like here? Can you maybe expand on that?
There are several different districts with different cultures, so there's a lot of different religions, and with Konstantin now, religion is pretty much freely practiced among everybody.
That's a large improvement, because I hear that there was no religion under the rule of
No, he was an atheist, and he spread that around.
Okay. What is the foreign relations status of Felonasia? You mentioned exporting. Abenaki?
Yes, there was an embargo on Abenaki for Felonasia in general, but ever since they found out about the healing properties that it can actually cure cancer, it's become a very large export and highly demanded, so the embargoes were lifted, and now we actually make a lot of our money for them.
Nice. Who do you trade with?
America, Europe, like any country that can
to
afford it.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
obviously.
makes sense. Do you have any contact with your family outside of Felonasia?
No, I do not.
Not at all?
No.
Wow. Have you ever tried to escape?
When Hans was still in power, I once attempted to escape, but I was unfortunately caught and I was shot. So, needless to say, I haven't attempted that again.
But you say you have a pretty good lifestyle now.
Yes, I live very comfortably.
Okay. Do you have any children?
No.
Even though you have no children, how would you say the education system in Felonasia compares to that of the United States?
Well, as I said before, there are several different districts here, and each district has different levels of education. Some districts might be higher education, others might be very poor education. It really depends on the quality of the criminals that come in and whether they're like a higher class or not, I guess you could say. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. What are the gender rules of Felonasia?
Generally, males will assume most positions of power, and women are almost second-class citizens here.
Well, that's uncomfortable. Since men are the primary power roles, how would you say family ties stand in Felonasia?
I wouldn't say family ties are very strong here. It's generally a individualist society. People do not trust each other since everyone here is a criminal.
That makes sense. What's the agriculture like here? I know that Abenaki is your main export. Do you grow anything else? Are you self-sustaining? Do you have your own food source?
We do a lot of fishing for our food, and the money we get from exports, we import a lot of food that way as well.
That makes sense. We talked about gender roles and how women are second-class citizens. What about the elderly?
Unless the elderly have a very powerful backing from younger family or people that they know, they generally will not last very long here. They'll be murdered or just taken advantage of in some way.
I mean, it is a criminal-oriented society. One last question. You mentioned that there were various districts. Are there any racial tensions or hate crimes that take place here in Felonasia?
Oh, definitely. Honestly, a lot of the crime that goes on here is because of the gang affiliations and just the constant warring between them, trying to gain more power and money. And it's really just a rough place to live because of that.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you have the very best life, Michael. Fair late.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. With me today, I have my associate, William Harnett, who's here to speak with you all about the current state of the island.
Hello, class. I am William Harnett.
On the trade of the island, what's the main export?
The main export of Felonasia happens to be the drug Abenaki. Now, Abenaki is the main export because it cures cancer.
So, is Abenaki grown anywhere else in the world?
Abenaki does not grow anywhere else in the world, and scientists are currently unable to explain this.
Oh, wow. I can understand why it's in such high demand.
Yes.
Weapons and other artillery is also on this. Why is that?
Well, as you know, the state of Felonasia is full of criminals, and as such, they require weapons and produce them in large amounts.
I'm sure that would be their specialty.
And so they have an excess of it, and therefore decide to export.
There you go. Fruits and such as bananas.
Yes, and other citrus fruits that are able to grow on the island. Now, these include lemons, limes, and oranges. And we are unable to grow anything else because of the poor soil quality.
Soil type. Now, seafood. Didn't you interview a fisherman?
Yes, I did. He went by the name of...
Joe.
Joe, yeah.
Yes, I remember. Seafood's a high export?
Yes, definitely.
I'm sure that's because it's an island.
Yeah, that's one of the very few things they have the ability to export.
Of course. They import such things as meat and livestock, wheat and grain. Why is that?
Well, because of the poor soil quality, they're unable to grow wheat and grain themselves. And because of the lack of wheat and grain, they can't sustain any meat or livestock.
Okay.
And they're also left to import textiles because they have no cows for leather or cotton or, yes.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. For foreign relations. So I know all about the foreign relations of Felonasia. They have no true allies because they're a convict-related origin.
Yes.
No national military, so that leaves them very
Defenseless, yes, against people who don't like them to begin with.
Of course. The laws are enforced by the local militias.
Now, these are the gangs that are separated among the islands, and this enforcement is kind of not...
Trustworthy?
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Good. So even though Abenaki lifted the embargoes and open trade, tensions still remain among different countries.
As we mentioned, they have no real allies, and so even trade among the open countries is still not very well.
Well, there you go. You want to tell me a little bit about Constantine Clavel and all the other...
Constantine Clavel is Felonasia's current leader, who won by taking power via finger wrestling. And this is how you become the leader of Felonasia. If you choose to run for office, you in fact would be dueling the current leader in finger wrestling.
How did finger wrestling get to come to be such a large part of the political system?
Past leader Hans actually was from Germany, and this is where this sport originated in.
Of course. What has Constantine Clavel done for the country that Hans Manstrangler did not?
Well, Hans was a very strict leader, to say. Whereas Constantine Clavel promotes religious toleration. He gives a larger portion of the export money to the actual growers and producers, as well as low taxes. He also improved civil rights, which helped significantly among racial equality, but this may also be due to the way they are separated among the island by races. And then women have the ability to work, but as we'll see later, that work is not necessarily the greatest. Okay, so for cultural districts, this is what I was talking about when the races are segregated, and this keeps them from interacting with each other for the most part. And this also promotes equality between the different groups. Rarely do they interact with each other, so they don't have so many tensions between each other. And this leads for some prejudices to still remain, but because they don't interact with each other as often, there's less discrimination. And this also leads to fewer annual hate crimes.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Do you have another clip of your interview to show us?
Oh, yes, I do. We'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm William Harnett, Associate of Dr. Professor Zimmerman, and I'm here with James Cameron, a local Felonasian. James, how long have you lived here?
I've lived here on Felonasia for 10 years.
10 years, that's quite some time. Have you had a family since you've come?
I do. I have a beautiful wife and 2 little girls, so...
Okay, beautiful wife, 2 little girls. Do they stay at home, or...?
During the day, they're all home. At night, my wife has to leave because she is an exotic dancer.
Oh, an exotic dancer. Okay, so she has some income as well.
Yes, and it's great for me. It's great for my 2 girls.
Yeah.
I hope they too grow up to be, beautiful exotic dancers. Just
so they can make money when they're of age as well.
Yes, and I mean they can't just stay home and clean things all day.
This is a common job for women?
Oh yeah, many women at Felonasia like to be exotic dancers.
Okay, all right, that sounds nice. And what do you do for income, sir?
I'm a fisherman. As you can see, you caught me here on my dock in between catches. It's an honest day's work. I enjoy it.
Sounds nice. And what do you do for entertainment while you're not out on the boat?
Well, in between exotic dances, we like to go to finger wrestling matches.
Finger wrestling?
Yes, finger wrestling. It's a German sport. It was brought over by Hans Manstrangler, and it's been popular ever since. To the point where we even got it involved with our political system. In order to take power, you have to defeat the current leader in finger wrestling. So that's how Hans was taken out of power.
The current leader is quite tough.
He's got fingers of steel, let me tell you. This guy is something else.
Yeah, must be nice. Okay. And what goes on with the gang violence I hear is around here?
Well, you know, it's everywhere. If you don't become a fan of it at some point, you know, you're probably gonna have to leave the island, because I mean, it's everywhere. I can't remember the last time I fell asleep without hearing gunshots down the neighborhood. You know, it's just, you got to deal with it.
It's become soothing at this point, I'm sure.
It is. I can't really fall asleep without a good few gunshots now.
Oh, I use a fan for white noise.
Well, you know,
It's a lot less violent, but to each their own.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, James. I
It's been a pleasure.
Have a nice time out on your boat after this.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, there you go.
All right, so are there any questions? Yes, you.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Abenaki drug?
Yes, actually. Abenaki, like we mentioned earlier, is a drug that cures cancer. The plant has large, broad leaves, which they use as the actual portion that they get the drug from. And the plant grows to about 9 feet tall. Other than that, they really have no explanation for it.
Abenaki can be taken either herbally or ingested.
Ingested, yes.
Also, note that the drug doesn't grow anywhere else other than the island.
Yes, they've
Due
tried.
to climate, they've tried to steal it, but hasn't worked out.
What's the exchange rate for Abenaki?
Well, it's kind of tough to say, honestly. It's a cancer-curing drug, so the situation is life or death, and the people controlling the supply are a bunch of criminals. So it's really what you're willing to pay to live. Any other questions?
Yes.
What is finger wrestling?
And, actually, I have a video of
Good
it.
question.
Finger wrestling is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, but it's very important to the political culture of Felonasia. Here we have a clip.
Two contestants, usually men, sitting on opposite sides of a substantial table, thread their fingers into a strap. Once in position, they wait for the referee to give a signal, before pulling as hard as they possibly can. The winner's the person who manages to pull the other contestant across the table, using only his finger. The middle finger's the preferred digit due to its strength and size. Two crucial components of successful finger wrestling.
Well, that's finger wrestling.
Any other questions that you may have?
Yes.
What are the gangs like in Felonasia? What kind of role do they play, and are they significant at all?
Immensely. Would you like
The roles they play, like we mentioned earlier, they're all separate from each other, so the roles they play are much more individualistic to that gang rather than the gang interacting with another gang.
Basically, they're their own little bubbles of culture.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
So drug use is actually socially accepted and legal there?
Yes, it is.
It's one of their top recreational activities, in fact.
That's how they stumbled on the cancer-curing drug.
Anything else?
Yes.
So women pretty much are just exotic dancers?
There's not a really diverse workforce for women at this time. Unfortunately, Felonasia has a very sexist ideal outlook on life.
And you heard from the local himself, even his daughters are supposed to grow up to be exotic dancers.
Yes.
So what is the correlation between power and strength within Felonasia?
Power and strength are directly correlated. The stronger you are, the more social power you have, which is probably why women in general are second-class citizens, because physically they just can't compete with the men of the nation.
And you can even see that in how they pick their leader. His strength is directly related to who is in power.
Finger wrestling.
Yes.
Tough sport.
Um,
And I believe that concludes our presentation on Felonasia.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. Class is dismissed.
Are you sure it doesn't look awkwardly close?
No, I'm sure.
I know we want to get the dye aspect of it, but you thought about that. Oh, shit, then I'm...
Gotta be like
Okay,
8
so let's
years
see.
or something.
Hello, I'm William Arnett. Hello, I'm William Arnett. 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 That sounds nice. Does your wife stay at home with the kids?
She does not. At nighttime, she goes out because...
Let me guess, she's a stripper?
Welcome, class. Didn't realize it was time to start. Wait, hold on. You know on my...
Felonasia, scene 1, take 2. Check it out.
Hold on. My bad.
Scene 1, take 3. Check it out.
Hold up. No. Wait.